Aubrey Williams just fundamentally rewired the conversation around gender and competition at the 2026 World Series of Poker after her second-place finish in the Ladies' Championship. This wasn't just a standard runner-up run. It was a performance that pulled in a massive $129,000 and served as a lightning rod for one of the most intense cultural debates we've seen in the card rooms for years. We aren't talking about a casual hobbyist here either. Aubrey is a serious professional with $500,000 in career earnings and a background as a software engineer who transitioned into full-time poker around 2019.
Her resume is really significant because it pushes back against the narrative that she's just a gatecrasher. She's already won 2 WSOP circuit rings online and took down a Borgata Winter Poker Open event earlier this year for over $50,000. But when she entered event number 68, the $1,000 Ladies' Championship in Las Vegas, the reaction was immediate and polarized. On one side, you have the record-breaking field of 1,475 entries, which suggests that the actual players in the room weren't exactly boycotting the event. On the other, you have a social media firestorm that treated her presence like a systemic threat to the integrity of the game.
The phrase, "the internet isn't a real place," came directly from Aubrey herself during her run, and it seems like the most accurate way to describe the gap between the vibe at the tables and the vitriol on X and Reddit. While commentators like Libs of TikTok were framing this as a biological male stealing chips, the people actually sitting next to her, like fellow final tabler Caitlin Kumsky, were essentially ready to go to war for her. Kumsky's quote about coming at trolls with the fire of 10,000 suns is probably the most aggressive defense of a trans player we've ever seen in a high-stakes environment.
It's a fascinating contrast. In the room, the atmosphere was reportedly professional and even welcoming. Aubrey was seen as another tough grinder to navigate, but once those chip counts hit the live updates, the online world descended into a debate about experience gaps and risk tolerance. Critics often argue that those who went through male puberty have a psychological or tactical advantage in poker, something about higher risk thresholds, but that's incredibly hard to quantify in a game that's fundamentally about math and psychology. Unlike the Olympics, where physical power is the literal metric of success, poker is a mind sport. The physical advantage argument falls apart pretty quickly when you realize the most grueling part of a 14-hour session is just staying focused and hydrated.
And yet, we have to look at the history of why these ladies' events exist in the first place. They were created in 1977 as a way to carve out a safe space in what was, frankly, an incredibly hostile, male-dominated environment. If the goal of a ladies' event is to boost female participation and provide an on-ramp for women who find the main floor intimidating, does the presence of a trans woman dilute that promotional tool? That's the core of the friction. The WSOP itself has a very specific way of handling this. Because of Nevada state law, they can't legally ban men from entering. Their solution since 2013 has been the $10,000 buy-in with a $9,000 discount for women. Aubrey paid the $1,000 rate because her legal identification says she's female. The WSOP essentially said rules are rules, show us the paperwork.
The Impossible Burger analogy is actually quite fitting here. If you're hosting a vegetarian barbecue, are you focused on the biological origin of the ingredients or the culinary experience and the spirit of the event? For the WSOP, the law and the paperwork provide a clear boundary, but the cultural impact is more fluid. It's worth noting that the winner of the tournament, Skye Chen, was a cisgender woman and a software engineer who had never even cashed in a live tournament before. She took home over $194,000. The fact that an amateur managed to beat a seasoned pro like Aubrey in a 2-hour heads-up battle actually reinforces the idea that poker is the great equalizer. The cards really don't care about your identity. They just care if you can navigate the range of the person sitting across from you.
But isn't there a risk of these events eventually becoming mixed games with extra pronouns, as some critics fear? If the barrier to entry is just a legal marker, and we know that legal markers are becoming easier to change in many jurisdictions, does the ladies' event lose its identity as a developmental space for cisgender women? We've seen other mind sports like chess take a much harder line. FIDE, the International Chess Federation, restricted trans women from their female categories in 2023. Poker seems to be heading in the opposite direction, favoring radical inclusion even if it creates these moments of extreme tension.
The difference with poker is its commercial structure. It's an industry built on butts in seats. The 2026 Ladies' Championship was the largest in history, breaking the record set just the year before. If participation is growing alongside inclusion, the organizers have very little incentive to change the rules and risk a massive lawsuit or a PR nightmare. Aubrey Williams played it very classy throughout. She didn't turn it into a political manifesto. She just played high-level poker. She's a math-heavy player who famously said no one can do math when complaining about the quality of her opponents. She views the game through a cold, analytical lens, which is probably why she was able to ignore the rage bait and just focus on the stack in front of her.
It feels like we're at a crossroads where the vibe of the game is clashing with the mechanics of the game. For the inclusion folks, Aubrey's run is a triumph of visibility and a sign that the poker community is maturing. For the protectionists, it's a sign that women-only spaces are being eroded by legal technicalities. But when you look at the final table results, Caitlin Kumsky in fourth, Lisa Tebegi in third, and Skye Chen taking the gold, you see a group of women who were mostly focused on the $100,000 pay jumps. They weren't there to debate gender theory, they were there to win a bracelet. The real drama wasn't the identity of the person in seat 5, it was the ace-5 of clubs Aubrey held against Skye's pocket 4s in that final flip.
Exactly. That final hand was a classic poker coin flip. Aubrey moves all in, Skye calls with the 4s, and the board runs out clean for the pair. In that moment, the entire internet argument about biological advantages or socialized risk vanished into a deck of cards. Skye Chen becomes the champion because her small pair held up, not because of anyone's chromosome count. It highlights the absurdity of trying to enforce these strict categories in a game that is 90% skill and 10% pure, unadulterated chaos. Aubrey walked away with her biggest career cash and a massive amount of respect from the professional community, even if she'll never win over the comment sections.
It's also interesting to see how the WSOP broadcasters handled it. Joe Stapleton had to ban hundreds of people from the live stream chat for being hateful. He actually went on air later to say that acting like someone doesn't belong isn't standing up for women, it's just showing mental weakness. That's a strong stance from the official voice of the series. It signals that the corporate side of poker isn't just following the law because they have to, but because they're actively trying to shift the culture of the room. They want the sausage fest reputation of the early 2000s to stay in the past.
And yet, the debate over experience gaps won't go away. Aubrey had been playing since middle school, watching the moneymaker boom. She spent years in the lab, so to speak. If a trans woman who has been a professional grinder for years enters an event designed to help amateur women feel comfortable, is that fair? Critics would say no, but then again, Jen Tilley plays these events. Kristen Foxen plays these events. They are world-class professionals who also have a massive experience gap over the average field. If we start banning people based on how much better they are than the competition, the whole concept of a championship starts to fall apart.
That's a great point. The ladies' event is a championship, not a clinic. It's meant to find the best player in that specific category, and right now the category is defined by the legal gender on your driver's license. If we want to change that, we have to decide if we want poker to be a safe space or a fair competition, and whether those two things are actually mutually exclusive. The turnout suggests they aren't. Women are still flocking to these tournaments in record numbers. If they felt the game was ruined or unfair, those numbers would be trending down, not up.
The long-term sponsorship math is still the big question mark. Will brands want to put their names on a ladies' event that generates this much controversy? Or does the chaos actually drive more eyeballs to the screen? We saw it with this event. The visibility was off the charts. Aubrey's composure in the face of what was essentially a global pile-on probably did more to legitimize trans women in poker than any policy paper could. She showed up, she was polite, she was incredibly good at cards, and she didn't let the noise tilt her. In a game where tilt is the ultimate enemy, she might have actually had a mental advantage, but it wasn't because of her transition, it was because of her character.
Ultimately, Aubrey Williams didn't win the bracelet, but she won the summer in terms of impact. She forced the poker world to look in the mirror and decide what inclusion really looks like when the stakes are six figures. It's a messy, loud, and often ugly conversation, but it's one that isn't going away as long as the WSOP continues to follow Nevada law over social media sentiment. The cards will keep flying, the fields will likely keep growing, and the poker gods will keep delivering these narrative twists that no one could have scripted.
It really boils down to whether you believe the table is for everyone who follows the rules or just for those who fit a specific traditional mold. For now, the WSOP has made its choice, and players like Aubrey and Skye are the ones proving it on the felt. Whether you're rooting for the Impossible Burger or the traditional barbecue, the game stays the same. 2 cards, 5 in the middle, and the best hand takes the pot. It's a beautifully simple game, surrounded by a very complicated world.
And that is the beauty of the World Series. It's the one place where a software engineer from San Francisco can beat an online pro from Pennsylvania for a piece of jewelry that costs $1,000 but means everything. If you found this breakdown of the 2026 Ladies Championship interesting, please share this with someone who loves a good poker story or a deep dive into the cultural trends shaping the game today.